Welcome to episode 4 of Whiskey and Weights, where tonight we are going to talk about muscle hypertrophy, and we're just going to simplify that. We won't get into great detail, but we're going to simplify it. All right, once again, thanks for tuning into episode 4 of Whiskey and Weights here. As always, we will start with what I'm drinking. I am drinking the Buskers. It's an Irish whiskey. I'm not a fan of Irish whiskeys, but out of all the Irish whiskeys I've tried, this is the smoothest. On to what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about muscle hypertrophy. You've heard me say it a million times. You've heard me talk about what's the best way to reach muscle hypertrophy. Well, I'm here to tell you that I was somewhat wrong in the statement I have made previously. Recently, I have discovered two doctors that I follow, both of them on Instagram, but that would be Dr. Brett Contreras and then Dr. Brett Schoenfield. Both these guys have done extensive studies on hypertrophy, but of course I didn't just take their word for it. They've done few studies compared to how many studies have been done over time. So let's talk about muscle hypertrophy, and we're going to simplify it. And hopefully this will help you in the future when it comes to programming your exercises. All right, so what is hypertrophy? The simple explanation of that is increase in muscle size. So increase in volume and mass of your muscles. That is a simple explanation of muscle hypertrophy. Now, how do we achieve that? We're going to achieve that through resistance training and protein ingestion. Okay, so that's going to be achieved through resistance training and protein ingestion. Later on, I'm going to put up some pictures, some cutouts I did of a study. You'll see where it says RT. Just know that RT stands for resistance training. All right, so here's the myth. Here's what a lot of people dispute. Here's the bro science that you'll hear in gyms a lot. You can only reach hypertrophy between 8 and 12 rep range, training at 65 to 80% of your 1 rep max. Hypertrophy cannot be achieved using low weight, high reps. That is the myth. Here's the facts. I'm going to read from this, so excuse me if I'm not looking at the camera here. But according to studies done from 1996 to 2019, with the most recent studies carried out by Dr. Brett Schoenfield and Dr. Brett Contreras, the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health compiled all the data and published an article, and you can look this up and you'll see what I'm talking about, titled Maximizing Muscle Hypertrophy, a Systematic Review of Advanced Resistance Training Techniques and Methods. Now, they compiled all the data, and when I say they compiled all the data, they compiled all the data of 76 different studies, okay? So 76 different studies that happened from 1996 to 2019, with the most recent ones being carried out, those two doctors I mentioned earlier. So how does hypertrophy occur? Well, you're going to see a screenshot on the screen here. And muscle hypertrophy occurs when muscle protein synthesis exceeds muscle protein breakdown and results in positive net protein balance in cumulative periods. This could be achieved with both resistance training and protein ingestion, which stimulates muscle protein synthesis and leads to decrease in muscle protein breakdown. Okay, so by improving resistance training and protein ingestion is going to increase protein synthesis so that whenever you eat or ingest protein, you have a higher chance of hitting that muscle hypertrophy or them rebuilding those muscles with that. So what is the best set weight and rep ranges? Okay, so this is going to be the big one. A lot of people are going to probably not like what's said, but it is what it is until we find something else. So right now, the American College of Sports Medicine, they do recommend for hypertrophy, they recommend 1 to 3 sets per exercise of 8 to 12 repetitions with 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max. As you can see on the screen as you're reading there. So let's recap there. 8 to 12 repetitions, 70 to 85% of 1 rep max for novice, and 3 to 6 sets of 1 to 12 repetitions with 70 to 100% of your 1 rep max for advanced individuals. So as you can see from that, that's what's always kind of been recommended. And unfortunately, that's just not 100% true, especially if you've been lifting for a while. If you've been lifting for a while and you've been doing 8 to 12 repetitions over and over and over, 3 to 6 sets, and you're not really breaking, you're starting to plateau, or you have plateaued and you're not breaking that plateau, this is where we're going to get into how you can hit hypertrophy in other ways, tricking your body, right? You've heard, got to keep your body guessing whenever you're exercising. This is how we're going to kind of get into that. All right. However, the recent literature shows a much wider range of training options. Several studies that found that training with low loads, 30 to 60% of your 1 rep max, results in similar hypertrophy to training with moderate and high loads, which is 60% or greater of your 1 rep max, when volation fatigue occurs. Now, what does that mean? So, evidence indicates that significant muscle growth occurs when the majority of training sets are performed with 3 to 4 repetitions in reserve. That's called reps in reserve, with moderate to high loads. Furthermore, it has been established that the volume of resistance training, defined as the total number of repetitions, so that's repetitions times sets, together with loads used for a given exercise, is the key element of adaptation in terms of muscle hypertrophy. Okay, so in a gist, what that was saying there is, whenever you're exercising and you're doing those lifts, right, you want to lift heavy enough that by the end of your rep range that you have set for yourself, you had 3 to 4 reps that you think you still could have done at the end of that, with each one of those, right? Which it might take a little bit to figure that out. You might end up having to drop weight for a couple times. So you'll do that first set and you'll really go hard and you'll be like, yeah, I had 3 to 4, and then you go up weight and then you realize you're not hitting the rep range that you set for yourself, and you don't have those 3 to 4 sets in reserve for that. So it might take a little bit. All right, so little tip here I'll throw in there. So working each muscle twice a week is more beneficial for hypertrophy. If you want some evidence of that, I did pull a screenshot from that same article to show that. So higher resistance training volume, 28 to 30 sets per muscle per week, has been associated with greater increase in hypertrophy compared to lower volume, 6 to 10 sets per muscle per week, in both untrained and trained. So for both novice and advanced lifters, you really want to be getting about 28 to 30 sets per muscle per week. You could try to get 28 to 30 sets per muscle in one exercise or in one exercise day. But you're only gonna probably hurt yourself doing that. So in reality, in order to be able to do that, you would have to train each muscle group twice a week. Now, a lot of people are gonna be like, oh man, I don't have the time to train 6 days a week or 7 days a week or even 4 days a week. You can do this training 3 days a week. It's not that difficult. It's just the way you have it split up. I can go into what I would recommend later on in order to be able to do that. But if you think about it, you can hit each muscle group twice a week in a matter of 3 days. All right. So, all right, that's a brief synopsis of hypertrophy. New studies say basically fuck what you've heard. Here's the facts. If you want to see this article for yourself, you can find it at the link that I've posted below here on the screen, or just Google maximizing muscle hypertrophy. It'll be one of the first things that pop up. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to Whiskey and Weights, and have a good night.